You know, it's funny. One of the only things in Scream 4 I thought that wasn't in the other films is that Nick Cave's Red Right Hand song wasn't in it. You know, it was in all three of the other movies.
Was it?
Like, we're like, wow, where's that Nick Cave song?
Yeah.
Everything else, though, you know, they're like, oh, it's a Scream for a new generation. It's like, well, where are they? Seems like they're acting just like the old generation.
I'm still going, who the fuck is Nick Cave? But I mean, I never
That's
paid
okay.
attention. Yeah, I guess
You know the song.
If I heard it, probably. I'm sure it's
You
on one
would.
of the Scream CDs where it says the theme song to
Well, no,
Scream.
it
It's
is. It's considered to be the theme song.
Oh
to Scream.
God, are you
Oh,
serious?
okay.
Yeah,
Oh, that's
I never
embarrassing.
noticed that.
Yeah, it's played very prominently.
And you
in
shouldn't
the film.
notice that if you're a decent human being,
Why would that make
or
any
even a
difference to
decent
the-
robot like myself.
Why would not knowing who Nick Cave is make you a decent human being?
It just all right.
Well,
no
he
question.
he made the proposal, right? A proposition.
The Proposition.
Yeah.
Which is a great movie.
Yeah.
Yeah. So shut up, co-host.
Oh, sorry. Excuse me. Yeah.
But we're not talking about obscure Australian music. We're talking about Scream 4, which is the latest entry in, the
Screamiverse.
The Screamiverse
Yes.
by Kevin Williamson, who is the guy who probably more than anybody brought the word meta to the attention of the world, which means basically something that refers to itself or is kind of self-aware.
Yeah, self-aware.
And with a lack of other stories to... obviously, he hasn't been watching horror between then and now, even though the movie's touted as being like, oh, now we're new horror, new set of rules, because all they do is make fun of the Scream movies.
Right.
You know, it's like, hey...
That's all they
Now,
can
now,
do.
to be
Yeah.
fair, they make fun of Saw too.
A little,
yeah.
tiny bit.
But Saw doesn't have enough. Saw kind of, at least for those films, those movies are like comedies. Anyway.
They
Yeah,
mention Saw in passing, and that's about as much as they do.
Well, how
It's
much?
like-
Well, this isn't Scary Movie 4
Well, no, but
or 5.
but the point is, the original films, the appeal was that it was for film buffs who understood horror. Said these are the things you can do, these are the things you can't do. Here's what happened when you do this in the horror film. And this new film acts as if it's going to do that with all the things that have changed in horror since then, and it barely
Yeah.
touched.
Oh, I think
it
this
was-
movie is for somebody like me who hasn't really watched a scary movie.
Oh,
much
hell no.
Since since Scream 2.
Hell no. That original. When Scream came out, that movie was like, wow, somebody made a movie that I would actually that is honestly catered towards me. Like any of that trivia, I knew all that shit, and I'm just going, okay, you're gonna die because you don't know this shit. But the thing is that after that movie, it's like they made that. When they made Scream, it was like, okay, wow, somebody who's a fan that knows their shit. They actually resurrected a slasher film by just kind of like poking at it,
Right?
And I love that. But after that, so many movies tried to do that, and they're still doing it. TV shows do it to where I'm just like, I'm at the point where I'm just like, okay, I just don't care anymore. I thought I was cool for knowing this shit. Now it seems like everyone needs to know this shit to be somebody like me, and I hate that. I lost my individuality after that fucking movie. All right?
It's like, okay, I like it when something is occasionally self-aware, a little in-joke, a poke, a wink, a nod at the audience, great. But the Scream films, it's like the writer Kevin Williamson, who's, like I said, this is how he made his entire career, because certainly nothing else he's done has been any good.
Oh, you didn't like
it's-
Dawson's
What about Dawson?
No.
What about Vampire Diaries, dude?
Dawson's
That shit is good.
Launched the WB, now the CW.
Are you a fan?
Hey, I ain't talking about me. We're talking about you.
Hey! Without
Don't make me
hey,
into the
hey, you
bad
know
guy.
what? Without Dawson, there would have been a no Pacey and then no Fringe.
Yeah, exactly.
Think about that, my
Why
friend.
is that true?
Because
Because I
know who
said
Joshua
so.
Jackson was. He'd be still working at a car wash.
They
right.
get some other actor.
Who wouldn't
Whatever.
give you the same chemistry that you got
Yeah.
now?
No,
All that
that's
character is right now is Pacey and working for the X-Files. That's all that is.
We're not talking about Fringe. What we are talking about is Scream 4 once again. Even though we already talked about it, that was just us
Yes, we did.
listening to Corey worry that someone's feelings might get hurt.
I know. and the thing about this movie, what I felt about this movie was, see, what you got to understand is, it's like, dude, say it already.
Just say how you felt about it. But what I was trying to say is this film is so meta that that's all it's concerned about is talking about meta and referencing. And it's like, it's not that it's not funny, because it's funny several times.
It has
I
its
laughed
moments, yeah,
during
yeah. It
certainly.
definitely has its
And
moments.
it's not like it's not paced well. I mean, it moves pretty briskly all the way
does.
through. But there's just no real plot to speak of. I mean, even when you finally get to who did it, you're just kind of like, okay, Scream, whatever.
Well, you know what?
You know,
Damn.
just so goddamn silly. You're like, all right.
I
But
mean, well, I was going to say, I mean, something Corey said that I agree with is that it kept me on my toes as far as trying to figure out who it was, although it really came down to like maybe 4 suspects throughout most of it. And then suddenly it went like, no, here it is. And the here it is it was one of those like, what?
Really?
You guys, I mean,
Really,
I guess,
Scream?
the way these movies go, you get to do that. I've seen things that were worse. But wow, this is
Well,
all right.
the thing is, though, is like despite that ending, it did make a lot more sense as far as a sequel should go, as opposed to what they did in 2. And I'll only just say 2. I never saw 3, never had any desire to.
I'm right there with you.
Yeah.
I when I saw 2, I didn't like 2.
I didn't care for it either.
This is
I thought they
more
were
of the
really
same,
trying.
except
Yeah.
less, and it's very sequely.
It
and
suffered from sequelitis.
Yeah. Well,
really,
I
in every sense of the word.
I liked
yeah.
2 because I thought it was funny, but I agree with you that the solution was pretty lame to it.
Yeah.
Believe me, 3's is much
Yeah,
more.
It
I didn't see
it made
3.
no
Yeah.
sense. I mean, it really made no sense.
this-
But which is why
This
I
one
appreciate this
is
one.
like the whole reason the person who did it is the person who did it is because it fits into their whole concept of like this film is really just about the comedy and the meta of the whole thing. And which is fine. I mean, I guess that's appropriate. But once again, when you actually take all the jokes out and you take all the referencing out and you take all the self-aware out, what you have is a story that makes almost no sense at all around characters who are for some reason in this movie. What you've got is it's the 15th anniversary of the Woodsboro Massacre, the original killings in the first Scream film. So what a great time to come back to town if you're Nev Campbell or Sidney Prescott.
Perfect
who's,
time to film a movie.
Who's been stalked in all 3. He comes back to town only to see like, Ghostface, the killer shit all
Everywhere.
over the town.
Well, I love that she's there for a book signing. That's all. It's her version of I'm Not Spock.
Yeah,
which is say like, hey, I'm more than just the girl who got almost killed. Yet I'm going back to the town where I almost got killed
to
to
promote
celebrate
it.
this.
that and just the fact that it's like referring to itself, it did kind of remind me of Wes Craven's A New Nightmare.
Yeah.
where all of a sudden Freddy Krueger was everywhere. Like they let you know that Freddy Krueger is this pop icon because it was set in our world, I guess.
Yeah.
and referring to the films. But I thought it was kind of neat that he's still playing on that whole like everyone knows that the Scream thing is a phenomenon.
Well, that's the thing that's what I'm saying. This is what this movie, it's not talking about modern horror. It's talking about the fictional horror within the Scream universe because there have been 7 stab movies, which is the Scream version of the, the adaptations of reporter, what's her name?
Gail Weathers.
Gail Weathers, played by Courtney Cox, of her book about the original Woodsboro murders. They've adapted into a series which now at this point apparently involves time travel and all
Wait,
sorts of
in
stuff.
Woodsboro, the place that has the God Hates Fags people?
I don't, is it?
I-
No,
I
try
think
to,
that's-
I try to black them out.
it's
Maybe
not
it is.
Westboro.
Yeah.
So, yeah, you're right. She's promoting I am not a victim by showing up to where she's a victim. And it's like 10 seconds before someone dies by Ghostface killing. Wouldn't you just leave?
Well, no,
before
no,
that
that's the
even?
thing I thought too, but they were quick to go like, well, you're sort of like a suspect, so you can't leave.
There is such a thing as extenuating circumstances. And I think that especially since everyone saw where she was when the killing happened, it's like you're not really a suspect. You're just involved in the case.
Well, Cyrus, look at this. It's something everybody needs to know. If you have a cell phone, and say you stop paying for your service, every cell phone, whether you have service on it or not, can still dial 911.
Yeah.
Which nobody in this movie seemed to know.
No, well, they know nothing about cell phones.
Yeah, yeah.
apparently.
Now, the only way I could excuse this by the end of it was like, okay, if you lived in Westboro, is that it? I'm getting
Yeah.
confused now. And
Woodsboro.
and you dialed 911. Good luck, since David Arquette is your sheriff,
Yeah.
and this is the most incompetent police force in the entire universe.
That's the only thing in the movie that really had me banging my head. It's like, man, what the fuck are you guys doing? I'm
They must play foosball all day.
Yeah, I was waiting for the
is-
cop from fucking The Simpsons to fucking. He's fucking running the police department. Good work, boys, and they find nothing. Yeah.
Exactly, because it's a tiny, small little town that nothing ever happens in except for anytime Sidney Prescott comes to town. In which case, people start dying.
Just
left
saying,
and right.
If 5 people got murdered within a 2-day period, I'm pretty sure the feds would step in
Immediately. But
You're
no,
right, yeah.
it's only the 6 or so cops in this town.
Yeah.
There's they've gotten repeated phone calls from the killer saying, I'm coming after you. Not just Sydney, but her niece, played by Emma Roberts. Or, I'm sorry, not her niece, her cousin, Jill, played by Emma Roberts.
Yeah.
And her group of friends, like Hayden Panettiere is one of her group of friends.
Yeah.
So 2 of you got phone calls? Yeah, us too. What's your favorite scary movie?
It was the killer's voice. From Stab. Or, I mean, you know, from your life. I'm Kirby, by the way. I'm their friend.
And the killer didn't call you?
No. Is that a bad thing? Does that mean that I'm not gonna live as long as these two?
No. Maybe. Of course not. Just be careful.
Oh my god, did you hear that? I'm gonna be next.
There's a group of horror movie buffs, of course.
Yeah,
because
some movie dorks.
Since Jamie Kennedy's dead, you can't
Right.
bring him back.
Yeah.
You gotta have the
and
have to have
and
that
now
in a movie.
it's Movie Dorks 2.0 who are all tied into Facebook and Twitter.
Yeah,
so
well-
they
And-
walk
and
around
it-
with a webcam tied to their heads to film for their webcast show. Which I'm like, there ain't no streaming web show that I watch all the time, so I don't know what these kids are doing.
But not only that, they're into shitty movies too. Because I was looking at all those movie posters that they had in that room. I'm like, what the fuck? Wolf Creek, really?
You know, it's funny. There are all these threats, and kids are dying in this neighborhood in front of people. You know, and what do? There's 2 cops sitting out front of the house after that. You're like, really? They just like eviscerated a girl across the street. This guy, and they're like, we'll just send Anthony Anderson and some fucking tiny little dude out there to sit out there. They're doing everything but smoking pot in the cop car, and
Which is
throwing
funny because
chicken out the window.
Which
you know?
actually, I thought that scene was hilarious, only because it's like, you know, we're next, dude. It's like the kids are looking at each other, going, you know, we're fucked, right? I mean,
know what?
no, we're not.
as
we
as
are.
much as like I'm sitting here pointing out all the things that are wrong that won't make sense in a movie. I really did enjoy it.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm not somebody who likes horror movies. I had fun with this, and you know the killings were inventive, and it had those funny moments. It's probably those that helped it along the most. I will say something it did a lot was like take that moment you're talking about with the 2 cops talking about, well, you know, we're next. You go in the house, this, or if you're retired, bringing up those cliches are funny, but it would have something where that whole scene would end as a killing, and then they put on that last joke that fuck Bruce Willis, and I was like, you know what, that was too much.
Yeah,
but
like it didn't need it.
I
yeah.
thought this movie did that a lot, though.
No, that's what I'm saying. It's not that one time. It's like
Okay.
my disappointment with the movie was
Right.
how often it would do that.
Yeah, 'cause I
it was
noticed
that one thing too much. It's like,
Well,
guys,
it was
pull
more
back.
important to the director, Wes Craven, to be able to do more of that type of humor than it was to actually make it believable on any level.
Yeah.
And I think that's the weakest thing about Scream 4 is that they're so important for them to make it like a comedy in that level. And I don't think it succeeds 100% either. Like I said, it doesn't get into modern day rules or anything. But that being said, you're right. It's got some good killings in it. I mean, that are brutal. You're like,
yeah.
that was one of the great things about the Scream movies. Like when Ghostface killed, it was nasty. You were like, damn, you feel that crunch.
No, you
Like,
get into it, which is something you want to see in a slasher film because I mean, even when Scream came out, I was like, wow, it seems like, especially after the years that went by, you're like, man, Scream is probably going to be the last time you're ever going to see like a real iconic slasher. Even though I was never that huge of a fan of this whole Ghostface character,
Right.
only because. With my slasher films, I like somewhat of a mythology, just
Right.
because it's something I can follow. With this, it's more like a Scooby Doo type
Yes,
deal,
like a
you
made-up
just-
mythology.
A made up mythology. You don't know who's
it's
gonna.
a different type of mythology
Yeah.
because those other films, they're always the same killer.
Right.
Here, it's always someone different underneath the mask every time.
Which-
so you can't really have the exact same.
Which the problem with that is wondering if their motives are going to be worth the shit enough to make you even care at the end.
You're right.
You know, where with this, I'm like, well, you know what? This played out a lot better than 2, and I'm sure more than 3 did. Because I mean, honestly, I had so much fun really watching this movie because I was there just really ready to judge it, and everything that I thought would go wrong, it really did it. You know, besides some of the jokes, which I get. You know, after you have all the parodies of this type of film, you know, you almost have to make your jokes a little bit better. So I think that a lot of that's where it lies the problem of them just going a little too far with these jokes as far as they don't know when to just stop it. Whereas like at this moment that would have been hilarious.
Yeah.
But you're still kind of dragging it on just to I don't know. But you need to stop.
Well, they don't know how to do that. They don't know how to draw characters who have even mildly believable motivations. I mean, plus, okay, like I said, there's a point where like 8 people have been slaughtered, and the teenagers are sneaking out to go party. I'm sorry, I know teenagers are dumb, but they're also easily terrified. And so I seriously think every last one of them would be locked into their room, hiding under their beds.
There's also a thing like, in a school, like if a student were to commit suicide, a lot of schools might just close for the day.
Yeah.
Here, they're getting slaughtered.
Oh yeah,
and school's still in session.
Yeah, easily. Yeah, and that's the other thing too, where I'm just like, man, is it really that hard to write something clever enough to make this world make sense? As far as the moviegoer just going like, okay, why are you sneaking out to go hang out with your buddies when there's somebody out there gunning to fucking kill you? You know, what is the motivation? Why do you still need to bitch and moan about being a prisoner in your house? Well, there's a reason for that, shithead, because somebody's trying to kill you.
Well,
but,
like I said, once again, Williamson's whole career post this has been like about him going, no, that was my thing. That was my one thing. And he keeps coming back to it. Like I kind of brought meta out. I brought meta back from someplace it had never been before. And he just won't get up past that. It's like, I don't need to write an actual movie. I just need to write meta humor, which, like I said, once again, is fine. It just could have been a lot better. I think that, like the ending only works because it's so preposterous and over the top that you're just laughing through it going, okay, this is fucking funny. I gotta admit the way they handle it,
but you know,
where they go with it.
I mean, it's that thing of like, okay, I've watched all these other cast members get brutalized, stabbed, and beat up. I guess it's only fitting that I should get beat over the head with the message that the movie's trying to deliver at the end of the the evils of instant fame and social networks and tabloid journalism. Like, okay, enough already.
Which makes you wonder why the guys who have the movie club, right, which is like one of the big center things of the film, like, oh, horror movies, we love them, shouldn't have been a club that were fans of the Jersey Shore or something like that. You know, I mean, it felt like the horror thing ultimately had nothing to do with anything. Really, it was like, okay, really, this is about like Paris Hilton and people like that. You know,
but you know, it's something like that where I bought into it. I really did. I was like, all right, I see that motivation and it makes sense to me. But the thing is that, despite all that, it was still, and I want to get this through, it was still a very enjoyable, fun movie, like something you'd want to see in as far as a slasher movie, especially going to the midnight. The midnight showing I went to, which Corey was right. If you're going to see this, see it the right way. At a midnight showing with a lot of people, because people were fucking going apeshit crazy, and I was happy to walk out just knowing, like, man, I felt like a sense of satisfaction with that film that I didn't have with part 2. And the thing is, like, everyone in that theater was like, you know what? I was really dying. I heard it like from 3 or 4 different people. I was dying to just wanting to have this movie be so good. And at least to me, it was, and that's what they were
actually dying.
No.
That had to be
that would have been the coolest fucking movie moment of my entire life.
And
I have to figure it out.
Those Alamo guys go all out for realism. The experience. But man, a special treat: 10 people from every screening will be slaughtered in their seats.
No, man, but it is one of those things where it's like, I wish some kind of slasher movie would come back in the forefront and actually just be good and actually deliver on what these movies can do, because it kind of sucks as I get older, realizing like, wow, man, is that whole slasher craze, is that thing really over and done with?
The best years
really
you.
I know it's like
I
don't want it to end. I was like, man, somebody bring back reboot fucking Nightmare on Elm Street again and try to get it right.
The problem is that there's only so much you can do with the slasher genre. It's a limited concept to begin with, and come on, you got to admit, even as a fan, they drove it into the fucking ground.
They did, but hey, look at Scream. Like, for the longest time, I was like, well, I guess that's it. And then Scream came along. You're like, wow, but I still think there's never turn your back on slasher films, all right? Because they will fucking come back. I guarantee you, they will come back. They will.
And by the way, on that note, I'll be right back. You know what? I'm going to go ahead and give my rating on this one. I wish I could enjoy it as much as you guys did. I did enjoy it, but I didn't enjoy it in the sort of like, oh, you guys totally got to go see this. I feel like it's a film that just didn't try hard enough. And for a 4th entry in a film, and something that amounts almost to a reboot, really, in the way that, and it certainly references reboots enough in here, I expected a lot more. I'm going to give this a low matinee, and it's a happy low matinee. People have been making fun
hell?
of me lately. 'Cause
What
I'm
is up with
adding
this happy
low
matinee
matinee?
shit? Yeah.
It's a low matinee I enjoyed, but ultimately I
give it a 7.5.
Ultimately, there's so much to criticize here. I mean, hell, Nev Campbell alone, who you could Nev Campbell, Courtney Cox, and David Arquette, you could rewrite this movie with very few changes and just not have them be in it at all.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
Okay.
they-
I
disagree. I was agreeing with everything you said up until
I
that.
No,
really
they
strongly-
sleepwalk through this entire film.
I strongly
and
disagree.
you could change it to
Yeah.
other characters, and it wouldn't really matter if
I
it was
disagree.
them or some other character.
I disagree.
I don't know. Courtney Cox seemed like she was totally thrown into it. It's kind of sad to see her all collagen and Botoxed up because I was like, damn, I almost don't recognize her. The way her face is like, it's impossible for her to smile. And it's like, I'm sure she's happy at times. She's just those muscles
You
are.
never know.
It-
They're
yeah.
so atrophied.
Well, the thing is it me or do you kind of sympathize with the original cast in a way to where
Yeah.
it's like, you know what? You kind of had your time and now it's gone, but it's like you're trying to get that back because the movie almost takes on a whole other meaning in a weird way while watching it that it actually made me invest more in the original characters and especially Nev Campbell's character. I mean, I thought they did a great job with her just being like the Nancy of the Freddy Krueger series. I
Right.
thought this is the first time where I'm like, wow, I really am rooting for her as much as I was rooting for Nancy in Nightmare on Elm Street Part 3. I mean, which is what you want when you see a character come back who's experienced this, has gone through hell with this, and is just, she's just basically going, fuck you. I know how to handle you, and I'm going to do the best way I can, even though I have a billion people around me fucking up.
That was the only thing I liked about her, though, was the fact that they had her, not going into panic mode. She's like, yeah, I'll deal with this. And she's like immediately beating the crap out of Ghostface.
Oh, yeah.
And I just felt they didn't take that joke far enough. It was like,
True.
wouldn't you be a black belt in 3 forms of martial arts by
Yeah,
now?
right.
I mean, come on, who wouldn't have
Yeah.
done that after 3 times
Now,
being
now,
stalked
Cyrus,
by
we got
serial
off the
killers?
picking it apart because as far as that goes, why wouldn't she have a gun?
Yeah.
It made no sense that her character would not have a gun.
I mean, she's like Batman. She doesn't believe him.
I'm just saying, it's one of these movies where you go like normally there's that like, oh, this you couldn't have this movie with black people. I'm like, you couldn't have this movie in Texas because he would have been shot 6 ways from Sunday.
Oh, sure, certainly.
Everybody would have been packing.
Everyone in that entire town would have shotguns
Yeah.
and pistols and grenades. And,
We would have pulled a Predator scene where we're just mowing it, just tearing down the rainforest.
well, the problem, of course, everyone in this movie does have a gun, can't hold on to it for more than
Yeah,
2
that's true.
seconds. So
Well, yeah,
maybe-
they must have got issued like 4 guns in the entire town, and everybody has to take turns picking it up once a week.
It's Butterfingers, Missouri. Anyway, sorry.
Yeah, what was your rating?
But yeah, in spite of all the different things to say about it and pick it apart, I did find it to be fun. It was entertaining. I got into it. The jokes when they didn't overdo them, they were good. I like the meta-ness of it, the fact that they talk things out, and yeah, the ending, the motivation, the reveal, kind of on the preposterous side.
Yeah.
At the same time, it fits within what these movies do all the time. It was one of these where like all these things I'd like to complain about. It's like, look, if I start here, I would have to go back 20 years doing it, and I'm just not going to do that. I can just look at it for the fun I had with it. I didn't see it at midnight. I wish I had. I went at 10 in the morning. So it was,
Maybe not the best time to see
Yeah.
any horror film.
but there were people there.
Screaming babies.
We still having a good time. No screaming babies.
That would have gotten you.
But we're still having a good time. It's it's not a film I can recommend to everybody, but it's a better sequel to the first Scream than any of the others were. Excuse me. And I did like the old cast. Co-host, you're right. It's like good to see him in there and kind of sad too. But to realize like the torch has been passed and you just can't do it again. And I don't know what else you're gonna do other than this.
I'm gonna show everyone there's a reason for me to be in the next 2 sequels after this.
Right. But all that said, I give it a matinee, a good matinee.
Okay,
A
well,
happy matinee?
You know what? I actually, I go
Keep
so far
you
as to give it a
happy.
high matinee, just from the entertainment value of it.
An enthusiastic matinee.
no, just a
push it.
I'm just having fun confusing the fans. Wait, I've been making my system of like gauging what your reviews are on a number scale, and what is this new enthusiastic thing? God damn it!
I give
Spell
it
through.
Yeah. Just waiting for you to give it a sad matinee.
But co-host, what's your
I
rating?
give it a retarded full price.
yeah.
What?
Well, actually, being a slasher fan and of this entire slasher genre, it was happy once again to see. Wow, okay, they're making this fun, they're making this work, and the audience, you know something's working when you can tell that audience who is there dying to see a movie are really into it, despite the fact some people want to argue, they're there, they scream and laugh, whatever, regardless. I think with horror fans, they are very picky, and because I've seen plenty of sequels where they go in and horror fans are there bright and early in the morning or they're at the midnight screening, and they walk out pissed when a sequel does not satisfy. Well, they are fucking.
I'm curious, what was the last time what was the last one you went to where the audience was pissed?
Oh, we're super pissed. It was Friday. It was the Friday the 13th. Jason Goes to Hell.
Oh, okay.
People walked. Yeah. That was the most. People were. There's two guys in wheelchairs going. That fucking sucked. Yeah, I was like, that was some fucking bullshit. No.
Such an extreme end of suck that it's almost not fair to even bring it up.
No. People were wearing Friday the 13th T-shirts. People were bringing like their fucking plastic machetes. It was on a geek level of Star Wars.
The theater I saw with the screen was all like 16-year-old girls who I'm surprised they even saw the movie, since they spent it all curled up in balls with their hands over their heads.
I had a front row of girls who a little while I was waiting to fucking I wanted to pull out a chainsaw and just slice through their heads because everyone kept going whenever there was any new character introduced. That's the killer. That's the killer. That is the killer.
See, you should have put the Ghostface mask on and killed him, and you'd have gotten away because people would have thought the theater they put on a production. That's nice.
Why do I feel like someday in court we're going to hear the recording of that?
Would have stabbed him in the ass and turned him into a popsicle. It was a fully satisfying experience, and the movie was really satisfying as far as what a sequel should do. Honestly, this should be the sequel to the first film.
Right.
This is a movie that actually made me want to go back and revisit the original, and also I had a little bit more respect for this whole Ghostface killer, which I never really, the fact that it doesn't really have any real mythology, it could be anyone, I never really cared about it as much as I did like the Freddy Krueger or the Leatherfaces. And this movie actually made me go, you know what, this is actually kind of a cool idea. If only I can have a movie where somebody is finally established as the Ghostface, somebody who comes back from the dead. Call me cliche, but I want that. I want that in the series now.
Cliche.
Cliche. I'll join with Leon and point the finger at you and make a Donald Sutherland face.
I want it. But no, I'm actually. I have to give it a full price. A full price. Yeah, I'd actually like to go see it again with a bunch of friends who are just like so about. Yeah, well, fans of the original.
Yeah.
But with this movie coming out, I still have some friends who are like really skeptical about it because they're just like, it's another number 4. Who gives a shit? And I'm like, no, you need to see it.
Wow.
So full price.
Need to see it.
Yeah.
That's a need to see it full price.
Yeah, need to see it.
I'm gonna have so much fun.
Why?
With this.
Why do you have to?
I'm gonna get as much mileage out of this as co-host wants to get out of the totally dead slasher shop.
God damn.
Speaking
you have to twist it all.
Up. What you were saying though, there was something you said, Ghostface Killer. Now, isn't that the name of a rap star though?
That's just how I say killer. Yes, there's a rapper like that. But after he introduced it, I was like, you know what? It should be spelled in the dictionary. Yeah. Killa.
So which came first, Ghostface or Ghostface Killer?
Ghostface.
Actually, The Scream by Alphonse Much.
There you go. Yeah. Yeah, that's true. That's another thing about this character, though. It's like, man, couldn't they be a little bit more creative? They took a mess that already existed, but that was one of my problems with the first one. But that's a whole nother show. We'll do that later.
Coming soon, the third Scream 4 review.